Hi, how is everybody today? My name is Michelle and I am from Eerie River Publishing. We are here talking today about, not just about, but with some women in horror because it is Women in Horror Month. So we're really excited to be able to promote and just essentially like showcase these amazing women for you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to hop on and say hello. Hello, Candy Pump. Hi, it's me, Kim. Hi, Kim. How are you? So we're going to have a little fun today, chit-chatting. Sorry, my glasses are a little wonky. Hi, Chris. So it's really glad you guys could all join us today. Before we get started, what I just want to kind of go through is a little bit Eerie River. So Eerie River is a independent publishing house. What does that mean? Is we're not one of the big guys. It's just a couple of us trying to do our best and promote and uplift as many indie authors as we can. So that's why we do the YouTube thing. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We've got our own webpage, www.eerieriverpublishing.com. And right now we actually have an Indiegogo campaign going on. So if you are someone that is interested in learning a little bit more about us and getting some Eerie River swag or books, this is a perfect place to get it. Right now it's just a way to help promote and support our authors and us. We've got books on sale and we've got swag bags and stickers, all the fun stuff. So let's get going. I'm going to introduce the authors. We've got five of them today. We're going to start with Neen. She's coming all the way from Australia. So Neen, are you ready to join? Yes. Okay, excellent. Hey Neen, how are you?
Good. How are you? Well, I'm a little sick, but I'm good.
Yeah. Well, as long as you're hanging in there, that's all that matters, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, but yeah, so you are a woman of horror. So tell me, how did you get into horror?
Originally, I believe it was something to do with stealing one of my older siblings' Stephen King books.
Oh, perfect.
That might have, yeah, when I was about 8 or 9, and it was fun. So
Yeah.
I discovered how fun it was that, books don't have to be light and fairy and fluffy, and
No.
being scared can be really fun. Also, because I had older siblings, they always had their mates over and they'd be watching the horrors, and I would sneak into them as well. And I got a real taste for it long before I should have. But
Oh,
yeah.
I think a lot of people that start writing horror actually probably got into it way younger. Like I was 5, my first very scary experience, but we could talk about that another time. Well, we're glad to have you here, and we are going to. Well, what are you doing in 2021? Sorry, I apologize. Crazy.
Okay. 2021. I have lots of projects coming up, but
Yeah.
my most exciting project is through Eerie River. And that's a don't look surprised, you'll scare me. Um that looks to be coming out in August, the first book of a dark fantasy series. Sorry, I just had a total mind
That's
blank.
okay. It is a dark fantasy series, or it better be.
Yes, it is. I promise. It's dark.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting, and I am hoping to get a few other horror novella one-offs happening throughout the year. They may not come out till 2022, but yeah. So lots of. I'm also working on a few. Gosh, I think there's 6 of them. Anthology projects
Yeah.
that I've been invited into. All of
Wow.
them, well, actually, most of them are horror.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. There's a few dark fantasy, but yeah, so a lot's happening. It's just most of them won't be coming out till later in the year, and at the start of the year, it's all trying to get them all done.
Yeah. Right.
So
Well, it sounds
yeah,
like a busy year for writing, anyways.
It is. I didn't quite realize until I started organizing my timetable and went, oh, okay, yeah, that's enough.
All right. Well, we are going to click back with you soon. So nice to chatting with you. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. I believe Alannah is next. Are you ready? Okay. She just shaking her head. Hi. Is it Alannah or Alannah?
It's actually Alannah.
Okay.
Nope, it's okay. Everyone pronounces it however they like, and I've got used to some very interesting variations on the theme.
Yeah. That's all right. I get Michelle a lot. That is what my name is, but still. I'm just weird. So let's talk horror. Like, how did you get into the genre?
I suppose I really sort of started with things, I'm going to say classics, like Stephen King, particularly Salem's Lot, those kind of really visceral kind of stories. And I really enjoyed reading classics, of course, like, Dracula and Frankenstein, things like that. So I got really interested more into, I suppose, the dark fiction side of things. So like the real psychological side of horror, not so much what we're afraid of, but why we're afraid of it, if that makes any sense.
That does. That's actually I love that aspect of horror.
Yeah. So that's
one
something
what makes people tick.
Yeah.
Like that kind of like when I can get into a story where I can yes, I appreciate that.
And like writing them from different perspectives. So, from, I suppose, the thing that we should be afraid of, and sort of that really, getting into that really creepy side of things of, something that hunts people or, and why. So looking at those kind of things too. So
that's perfect.
But originally I started writing fantasy and dark fantasy, and which I still do, and I suppose sort of speculative fiction as a whole now. Yeah.
Okay.
So lots of genres.
Yeah, the dark genres together are a lot of fun to write.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything? Are you having any big releases come up in the next year?
So I have quite a few anthologies that I've been involved in. I don't know, I've lost count. I just keep saying yes to things, and so I've stopped counting because that makes me feel less stressed. So I just say yes and submit things.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of fantasy, dark fantasy, speculative fiction, certainly some horror. Sort of everything from short stories to flash fiction to microfiction, lots of different things, with quite a few different publishing houses at the moment. And I'm working on a couple of novellas. I've got a dystopian novella, quite a sort of blend of that dark fiction and dystopia, and sort of an alternate history aspect to it. And a horror novella as well that I was interested in working on. So I'm really keen on the sort of folklore and that kind of Gothic folklore side of things. So I like my
cool. So lots of stuff coming up.
Lots.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to it. So I'm going to switch you out, and we're going to talk to C.A. McDonald next. How are you?
I'm good, Michelle. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you again.
Yes, this is my third event, I think. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
You're a regular now.
I know, I am. It's fun though. I like doing this. This is great.
Good, excellent. So what brought you to the horror genre?
That is a great question. I would say that I enjoy making my readers feel some sort of emotion. Like back in the day when I used to write smut, I enjoyed writing something that would get the reader hot and bothered. And these days I've been enjoying writing something that scares someone. So
still, still emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
valid
Still,
emotions.
it's manipulating their primal feelings. I find that to be a fun mini power trip sometimes.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what are you doing this year?
So I have a short story, Woven Womb, that will come out in the Dispatches from Minari's anthology by what is it? It is Forest Avenue Press, which is a local Portland press. Comes out in October of this year, and it is commemorating I think it's some major birthday of Ursula K. Le Guin. Like she would be like 110 or something along those lines. So it's really cool. It was actually for local Portland authors only. So that's exciting. It's not horror though. It's fantasy. So I know I'm
That's
ashamed of
okay.
myself.
No,
But
we're all allowed to like write anything we want to.
yes, exactly. No matter how weird or wonderful it is.
Yeah, it's all valid.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for accepting me as I am.
Yeah. No judgment zone over here.
The judgment-free Eerie River zone. I like it. It's nice.
That's perfect. Well, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I was really worried about COVID kind of like waylaying everything because Lord knows it's delayed. I've submitted to a lot of stuff like at the end of last year, and it's hard waiting to hear back, particularly when their notices go out so late right now because, publishing staff are impacted by it, and it's really nuts out there. So I was worried that this one was going to suffer, but then it's like been on track and I'm so excited. So
that's perfect. Well, awesome. I'm excited to when it does come out to read it. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be good. All right, I will talk to you soon. We are going to bring on our next guest. I'm sorry, I'm just trying Destiny. So I'll see you in a minute. Hello, Destiny. Are you ready? I'm just putting you on. Oh, wait. I think she's ready. She said she was.
Yeah.
Okay. You're having an issue with your camera, you said.
I know.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. Don't know what happened.
No, not a big deal at all. So what brought you to the horror genre?
I've been into horror since I was since I was a little girl, actually.
Okay, so like from a young age, you've always been
from a young age. Yeah. It's actually funny. My parents used to watch all these horror shows like Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
And
we used to do that too.
The Hitchhiker and Friday the 13th, the series, and those are the shows that actually got me interested in wanting to write horror.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's where a lot, I think, in that I started watching all that stuff too when I was younger, so
yeah.
It's good to know that other people did the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else coming up on in 2021? Any releases coming out?
Well, I'm trying to get my book published. I've been sending it out to publishers, trying to get it's a horror novel published. And right now I'm just submitting to a lot of anthologies.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, good luck on getting it published.
Thank you. Yes, crossing my fingers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, it's unnerving to put something out there, so I commend you on trying, because it is like heart-wrenching sometimes, just waiting. So okay, I'm going to switch out, and then we've got Melody next. Hello. Hi. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. So what brought you to the horror genre?
Well, I blame fairy tales, actually. When I was a kid, I had this book. It was huge, and it had all these really dark fairy tales that I started reading. And then from there, I went pretty much Goosebumps to Stephen King. And so I've been interested in horror a long time. Writing horror is more recent. I've always been interested in writing, and then over the years, just got darker and darker.
Yep.
And then about maybe a year or so ago, I started writing a lot of horror short stories, and it's just been growing from there.
Oh, perfect. So it's something that's new. Well, that's exciting. Do you have anything coming for 2021?
I'm working on it. I'm submitting to a lot of anthologies. I have my novel, which is a murder mystery novel. It's not quite horror, but there is a ghost, so it's a little scary. And that I'm working through with my my writing group, which will probably be more of a 2022 thing when I start setting it around. But
well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, we hope that well, good luck on submitting to places and getting it finished. Like I know writing a novel can be very overwhelming. So good luck with all of that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start bringing everybody back, and we are going to have a little bit of a conversation. Looks like we may have lost someone for a second. We'll see if they come back on. Have a conversation about women in horror. So the first question that someone had asked, because we asked some people from our group about what we wanted to kind of talk about, and the first thing that we wanted to talk about was the portrayal of women characters in horror writing. Like, I guess how we see it being portrayed, and then how do we like write our characters as well. Does anyone want to start on how they feel that women are portrayed in horror and dark fiction?
Yep. All right. I'll go because
okay.
All right.
We don't have to all answer every question either. It can just
yeah. So I think for me, I've been really interested sort of going back to like the classic side of things. So like thinking of Dracula, like the female character in that, sort of Mina Harker, is this sort of I'm going to use the classic, running through the woods in her white dress, sort of predated upon, preyed upon, and she's sort of a real victim of sort of the story. And I recently read Carmilla, which was written before Dracula, by Sheridan Le Fanu. And it was a really interesting read because in this case, you've still got your female sort of being preyed upon, but in this case, the vampire is female. So I found that really interesting, and that kind of, even 1800s, this, really complex interaction, because I suppose vampires were originally portrayed as women. And then in Dracula, we start to see them as being almost constantly male. So that was kind of interesting for me. And then, moving forward through time to our, sort of, vampire slaying female characters from, sort of urban fantasy, thinking of like, sort of Jane Yellowrock and those kind of, really tough, gritty female characters. So, sort of how that's evolved over time from the, and even the, the sort of female, monster, if you like, has become different as well. So that's something that I've been really interested in.
Well, that's pretty, it's interesting to see the evolution of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sort of how different writers have sort of played with that over time, and even as early as sort of pre-Dracula, sort of dealing with this real psychological aspect of a female vampire and a female victim, which was for me really interesting to read.
Does anyone else have like a comment on how women are normally portrayed in horror?
I kind of have a comment on that. I think it's interesting that even with the evolution of how women are portrayed, there is still somewhat of a stereotype that happens where especially you see it in like urban fantasy, kind of horror romance, like where it's like every main character has a leather jacket, rides a motorcycle, has dad issues, like has tattoos, and has
Isn't that everybody?
like it's like, you know, like, or they're gonna check like 4 of those 5 boxes and like all of them, which, don't get me wrong, that character is awesome, but it is a little fatiguing when every woman now has gone from being like the ingenue to now she's just kind of like like the alpha male stereotype, but now as a woman. And it's
Right.
I kind of drives me a little bit crazy sometimes, where it's like,
Yeah.
now it's not okay for her to be powerful and also feminine, or powerful and in touch with her emotions. She's got to portray these very classic masculine flaws. So I don't know.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well. They're not writing, well, traditionally, or in these stereotypes, they're not writing female main characters. They're writing males and just changing their name or something like that. And that frustrates me because
Yeah.
there is, you know, guys and girls do often think differently, or they will react differently, and
Yeah.
that's not always portrayed, and it can be really frustrating to read when you're like, okay, but why aren't I relating to this, you know, kick-ass female character, because it's not really a female character. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, that's my biggest struggle with it is changing, and there are, you know, exceptions to that rule, obviously, but that's been my biggest frustration when I'm reading horror or dark fantasy or pretty much any of those, you know, strong female leads that they don't really feel female.
They're also too kick-ass too quickly. Like I trained martial arts, and I really hate when I watch a show and suddenly they're 3rd degree black belt in 3 months. And I know you got to speed some things up for TV, but sometimes it's okay. It takes more than one montage.
It takes more than, give me 2 montages.
You want a 45-minute montage of
I know.
training.
I feel like that's the same trope for every gender, though. They start as being like, "Oh, I can't fight," to being like this kick-ass hero within like
There's always
a
like a
week and a half.
supernatural reason for why they suddenly do
That I
stuff.
don't think is just a female thing.
No, that's not.
Yeah, but
And
no,
I
I
have to
agree.
say, sorry, Raina, is it? What a brilliant comment she's just put in, saying, ever been in a fight? Nobody wants to fight with their super long hair down.
I know.
Exactly.
I like the first thing I
Yes.
do when I started arguing with my husband is put my hair up. No,
Exactly.
yeah, but it's true. And yeah, and the same with movies too, how the women are always dressed kills me. I'm like, nobody walks around in heels all the time, and if they do, put on some sneakers.
Or like big boots, like huge leather, like they're like dominatrix boots. Like, if you and then they go like, then they're like out in the woods, like looking for bodies with their big dom boots on.
Platforms. I'm like,
Yeah, it's like
I don't mind that. It's when they're out there in the stilettos that I'm like, no, they get stuck in the mud, and I've tried this, and and you end up sinking down onto the
And then you lose your shoe.
breaking your ankle.
I'm enjoying this. Braids are the best battle hair. Agreed.
Mhm.
I braid my hair and then put it in a bun when I train.
Yeah.
Or wear it short. Like, you don't have to be like some kind of elfish creature who's also like a warrior. You know,
Exactly.
You can be practical.
Yep. Or what if, I suppose getting into sort of the monster style of things too, of how we how we portray female, sort of what's monstrous about being female, and it is very different to how men are portrayed when they're sort of in that role. And let's
talk about how do we portray our female characters? Like, are you purposely trying to break free of the tropes and the last girl kind of scenarios? Are you writing what you, or are you going with friends?
I feel like I personally go for characters who I want them to be deeply flawed in some way, even if they're the protagonist. Like I
Yeah.
want to understand their reasons for what they're doing, but I don't necessarily have to agree with that. And there's a lot of fun in making them choose something that is just awful, that is just a nightmare. So I like the psychological tension of that, and I feel like in the horror space, sometimes, like at least in the kind of subgenres we're talking about, where that like the decisions that people make don't necessarily that space for them doesn't exist, you know, that they are still very virtuous underneath their like veneer of being the tough girl and everything, that they just still want to be hugged on the inside. I don't necessarily want to write that. Like I like the girl who is after the blood because it's, you know, it is vengeance, but she's not doing it because, you know, she has to for duty. She does it because she likes it. Like, you know, a little twisting that a little bit.
Yep.
That's dark.
Yeah, and I think, like with my writing, I've been sort of really looking at, again, that kind of flawed character. But I suppose for me, what bothers me is when you know, they sort of start making really weird, illogical decisions. There's always this kind of point in fiction where they just make this decision. You're like, no, that is just so stupid and out of character. You know, you're supposed to be this smart, you know, sort of female character who, yes, is still going to make mistakes, but maybe not, you know, the best of decisions, but being able to go in and explain, you know, what influenced those decisions, rather than her, you know, walking into a dark room and not bothering to check if the lights work first. Those kind of things. So I suppose I like, the complex character. To a degree, I want them to be at least partially rational. You know, either not completely driven by emotion, because I don't think anyone really is in life. You know, we all have reasons for why we do what we do. And
even if you can't see it straight away.
Or even if the character can't see it, you know, because we have those as well. We all react for different reasons to things.
Yes, the logic.
We're unconscious of.
Yeah, like women aren't just running around feeling big feelings filled with hysteria all the time. Just, you know,
Yeah, well, or the opposite of just flinging knives because they hate everyone. It's sort of, you know,
right, because they have, like, you know, undealt with childhood trauma.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's always that black and white. It's either one or the other. There's no concept that women are more complicated than that. And it's interesting because David's made a comment about how, and I, you know what, I think it's true, because he said the annoying thing about characters that are capable is when it's a male, people don't blink an eye. But when it's a woman, they call them Mary Sue. I'm like, yep. Women can't be logical. They can't be capable. They can't be all these things. And that I try to push against every chance I get, because we're more complicated than that, and we're not always shown that in books or movies, or especially in horror. We fit these little categories, and well, we don't.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, it's very limited, like the narrow band of like acceptable female protagonists that there are, you know. And
if it's female monster, it's female monster for a reason. You know, not just because they are. You know, because maybe they were a horrible person to start with. You know, it's always, you know, their creation has made them that way. Not that they chose it willingly, and
but they're always nice and sweet underneath, didn't you know?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like they're all really like virgin maidens underneath. You know, they were just sullied by some wrongdoer. You know, if they were just fixed, they would be all good again.
Yeah.
I was gonna flip off the camera, but I'm gonna hold myself back.
There's this even when we have the female characters do that, there has to be like an over explanation of why they can't just be, especially if they're gonna join an army or the battle. There has to be their family was murdered or some horrible other trauma, so they can't just be interested in that stuff. And
or
that can be frustrating.
Actually be passionate about the cause for the, you know, the army. It has to be a personal reason as well. There's no sort of ability for them to just actually maybe logically agree with whatever the cause of said army is.
Okay.
Like male characters can. They can totally be logical and join a cause for its its virtues or its flaws. Female characters have to have this kind of personal connection to why they're doing it as well. That bothers me.
That's gross. Because you're right. That is really gross. Because it's like the guys get principle and philosophy, and then the women are left with like familial obligation. Like,
Yep.
You murdered my sister. Not like, I want justice.
Yep.
It's like women don't get to be Batman.
Yeah, or if they want justice, there's got to be that because their family was murdered, not because they agree with the ideologies, or it's this emotional reason that they're doing things rather than that kind of logical thinking style of maybe they just agree with the ideologies.
Yeah.
Whatever they are.
Yeah.
I think my issue is that it seems to be in a lot of novels that women, there has to be a love story. These women always seem to fall for like the handsome vampire or werewolf. It's like, why do they always have to fall in love? Why does there always have to be a man involved? And why does he sometimes have to come into their rescue? I mean, can't they rescue themselves? I mean, that's what annoys me.
Like, why is the relationship super toxic? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Just...
Yep. Or it's this kind of weird relation, or sort of not weird, but it's this relationship that's divorced from emotion. It has to be either toxic relationship or this kind of suitable for circumstance kind of relationship. That's the other option. There's no because he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Because he's a nice guy and he has these assets that I require. So I'm going to use him. So that's kind of that's that other aspect again of sort of a manipulating female character, or the one that requires rescuing.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a screaming toddler downstairs, so I had to go. I was like, what's going on? So sorry I missed some of that conversation.
Oh, you can catch up later. It's all good.
I am going to be rewatching this the minute it goes live again. I always do. I'm crazy. Well, not crazy. I like to rewatch things.
We have started a fight in the comments over who's Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
No, see, I like Catwoman. Catwoman's cool.
I do too.
No, I'd say that's all right.
I'm like, yeah,
I'll be
Catwoman
Huntress.
was all right.
Ooh, there you go.
I'm Huntress. I've got the crossbows and everything.
Oh, very cool.
They're really fun. You put toothpicks in and I fling it up to my corkboard that's behind here. It's great therapy.
Rat hunting.
Dangerous. Well, let's talk. What are our inspirations in the field? So in the field, I'm assuming horror. So what are our, I guess, do you have someone that you kind of, if not aspire to be, have looked up to and taking inspiration from?
Absolutely. There are so many people, but I have to say my first female horror writer that I actually thought, oh my gosh, I love this character, is, I don't know if many people know about her. I haven't really heard many people chat about her, but and now I'm having a blank of her name, but her series is the Sonia Blue series, and the main character is a vampire, but with a bit of a twist. She's sort of like that Blade sort of thing. She's a vampire with extra skills sort of thing, and she's brilliant. And the books are 80s, I think they were written, so there's some issues with them looking at them from nowadays, but they absolutely just made me go, oh my god.
Nancy
Women
Collins?
But Nancy Collins, yes.
Sorry, I was looking it up for you.
That's all right. I always forget her name and I feel so bad. But yeah, I absolutely love it. The first one of the series, I believe, is called Sunglasses After Dark.
Yep.
And I really love them. They're not, there's a lot of flashbacks and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was one of those books that I read and just went, I want to do this. I want to break the stereotypes of everything. So yeah, she was great. Apparently she's done a re-edit of it to update it, and now there's like cell phones in it, and I'm like, no, I'll stick to the original. No, that'll do my head in. But yeah, that was quite likely my first female horror writer that I just went, oh, I want this.
Yeah.
So, and since then there's been lots of inspirations in all different genres, but yeah, she's always the one I think of.
That's cool. I'm going to put that on my list because I need to, when I have time.
Yeah. So in 21 years.
When the kids are out of the house. How about you? Sorry, I'm like reading names and I can't even put it. C.A. McDonald. You mentioned author last time you were around, so I didn't know if you wanted to. Do you have an inspirational author?
Yeah. Okay. I would say that, like, and this would be like if I could write like this would be my dream. If I could write like a combination of, and I'm gonna butcher her name, Tamsin Muir. I don't know if that's how you say her name. If I could write like her combined with Jacqueline Carey, I could die happy. So just like decadent, sexy, but disgusting. Sign me up. Like, please.
It's like the perfect combo. It's like,
yes, like a dark fantasy written by that person together. Like that's like my platonic ideal of a book. Like if I could just pursue that. So just like dripping, decadently dark, but really hot, but scary, and then like have some excellent world building and turn all the weird like tropes on their heads. Just, kill me now.
You do it.
Oh, that's my dream. Yeah. One day.
You're going to. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
You'll do it.
Myself.
Yeah.
I think, I'm just going to jump in. I started reading horror. Apart from, I did the, from Goosebumps to Anne Rice and Stephen King. So I took a kind of large jump there at about 12 or something. So it was kind of an interesting stuff to read as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Yep. Anne Rice, definitely. Again, that kind of starting off with those kind of, I'm going to be a little bit terrible in a way, but those kind of sometimes victimized emotional female characters. But, and that, sort of, I think in a lot of respects, she really sort of turned that concept that we have of Gothic horror into something new. It went from that kind of, Dracula-esque, the monsters are really monstrous, to the monsters might have feelings and emotions and reasons for why they do things. Not that thrilled always with her female characters, looking back. I was more in touch with those sort of male characters and their fluidity of, how they view people, particularly that their attractions to people were more about their who they were as a person rather than their sort of physical appearance. Of course, they were all beautiful, and that's because they were chosen by people who were attracted to those things. But yeah, I suppose the child character, a classic one of Claudia, was for me that kind of really, bringing that real, dark fiction aspect of the, sort of the morality into something of, if you do something that is obviously goes against the grain in so many cultures and so many, historical settings, creating that kind of character who is basically a living hell, in a living hell. So that kind of, really looking into that psychological side of things. And I've liked, I've read a lot of her books still, even, I still enjoy them, even though that, they sort of go against a lot of what I feel as a writer now. But
So is she more of the inspiration then?
Yeah, like early on, certainly that kind of real, sort of, I'm going to say decadence because it is decadent, but it's in a sort of a different sort of way, that kind of real historical aspect too, which I love as, sort of someone who's done degrees in history and archaeology, that kind of real getting into the real in-depth history of things and setting, sort of flashback scenes in history I really enjoyed. And still enjoy to write. So those kind of things. Mixing up that kind of gothic and historical side of fictions. But I've really enjoyed, just started reading, I'm going to butcher her name as well, Shannon Maguire's October Day series, which is something that I hadn't expected, actually. Of a female character. I don't know how it progresses because I'm only on the first book. But so far, I really like that kind of character who is actually so far functioning from a rational point of view. There are emotional reasons, but emotions and intellectual reasons are considered together. It's kind of a real trade-off between, why she does something. Yes, I feel this way. Is it a good idea? Rather than just, running off to go and do something because, she feels strongly about it. There's that real pull between.
That's good. Well, it's good to find like a current author that can also be an inspiration as well. So that's excellent. Perfect.
And of course, the Fae folklore that just drenches it is amazing. So, yeah.
Oh, perfect. That's great. How about you, Melody? Do you have anyone that you is an inspiration for you?
So I feel like a bad person for the women in horror because I was looking back and I realized that without even realizing it, I read pretty much men in horror, and I don't always pay attention to the author names. I read a lot of Stephen King, like a lot of people. So it's one thing
I don't read a lot of Stephen King. I'm probably one of the only ones that don't.
Yeah, you're okay. I don't know. It's hard to point to a specific. I read things and there'll be like turns of phrases or individual pieces that come out, and I sit there and I have that mix of where I feel really sad because I didn't write it, but really excited because I want to write like that.
Yeah. Well, this will give, we've got a couple that have given you a list of names of women horror authors. So now we can I think it's sometimes because they have been so, like, they're not one of the big ones. Like, there's only so many names that really, like, you'll find at your Barnes and Noble or somewhere else. So it's up to us to find those hidden voices of horror and search them out and order them so that we can start reading them and having attention put on them as well, which is what I think this whole month is about, is spotlighting the fact that, hey, women are writers too, and we are writing horror. So
and I keep accidentally reading YA, which I like, but sometimes I look at a book and I read it and then I go, wait, everyone's 16. And it's not that I don't like YA, but I'm like, I was trying to read an adult book again. And I think especially when I look at the women names, that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
They're more prevalent in YA.
Yes, for sure.
And I think I think that's why when I did read Nancy Collins, it struck me so much because it especially back then, you didn't have access to female horror writers. You had, what you could get in the bookstores, and majority they were male authors. So
R.L. Stine, Christopher Pike, Stephen King.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could think of female authors I read when I was younger, but they weren't horror.
Yep.
How about you, Destiny? Do you have someone that in the field that's an inspiration?
Yeah, I actually grew up reading a lot of Ruby Jean Jensen. I read a lot of her books, and it was amazing because she was like a grandmother, you know. She was this little old lady that wrote mostly about killer dolls that would like kill people, and
Yeah.
she wasn't afraid to kill off kids in her novels, which was kind of shocking. But I thought she was an amazing author. And I also read like Caroline Cooney and Lisa Tuttle, a lot of these 80s women authors that unfortunately, you know, they wrote, you know, so many novels and then they retired or quit writing, which I always found to be really sad. But I found the majority of my inspiration to come from the women who wrote in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I think it all depends on when you grew up. Like you find the inspiration sometimes from your like what you can access, like what's readily available at the library. Like I got a lot from the library, and unfortunately they didn't carry a lot of stuff that wasn't indie. They carried a lot of mainstream authors, so that's all I really had access to until recently, when I was like, hey, there's such thing as the indie author world, and there's tons of women authors out there. So I think this is now where I'm getting a lot more of my my reading is through the indie authors and people that I've met through this industry, which is pretty exciting. What I'm thinking, we're going to be wrapping up in a little bit, so I just wanted to do is if anyone has any questions. I know there's a chit chat going on in the comments, but if anyone has some actual questions, write them down now and we'll try to get to them. If you have a specific author you'd like to direct it to, let us know, or if it's open to everyone, we can do that as well. For us though, how about we just find out one last quick question, and we'll try to do you think at this point, are there barriers for women horror authors going in now? Like, do you see a lot of barriers being put up specifically for women, or do you think it's just industry wide?
That's a really tough one.
It is.
See, I feel like I'm only just dipping my toe in still. So I feel like I don't know yet. I personally haven't come across any, but I've been really lucky. But I do know, like, a friend of mine who is an amazing writer, and she doesn't write as dark, but some of her stuff, you know, teeters on that dark fantasy sort of thing. And she's been, to her face, told, wow, yeah, I read that, it was really good. I thought it must have been written by a man.
Ooh.
And yeah, when she told me that, I was like,
gut.
What? So it's still there. Yeah, personally, I'm still new, so I don't feel like I've come across it to me yet. So it would be interesting to find out. Hopefully it's not as prevalent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to sort of agree with Neen that I haven't, I mean, I've literally only just started publishing things last year. So super new to this kind of scene of things. So far, I haven't found kind of any barriers to you know, kind of getting my work out there and exploring my ideas, and I suppose I write all the time anyway. So for me, deciding to publishing things was just so that I'm not shoving it in a drawer.
Yeah.
You know, kind of giving it a go. And yeah, like I think probably the only barrier per se that I've seen is like a lack, for me personally, an absence of sort of creative writing degrees, and kind of, you know, not that they should matter, but, you know, sort of when agents and publishers are looking, you know, at work, they kind of, you know, it is something that they ask. You know, like, I've got my background in history, archaeology, prehistory, human anatomy and evolution. So those are my degrees. But I also have, like a lot of random, courses that go with that are, sort of history. And but originally I was really interested in creative writing, and I kind of went towards science as a, to be honest, an interest and something that I could actually hopefully get money from, to be honest. So yeah, now that I'm doing a PhD, maybe if I can get a job at the end of this, it'd be amazing. But yeah, like, sort of exploring that interest myself. So I've sort of found that working that into my writing seems to sort of almost validate myself as a writer. And I find that kind of awkward because I have these interests in mythology and folklore. I read all that stuff. Sort of my background in a way is sort of more towards literature and that. And yeah, it's kind of, I'm now sort of working more of my sort of scientific knowledge and historical side of that into sort of, I'm interested in doing a whole sort of series of gas lamp sort of style stories that are, sort of gas lamp fantasy involving archaeology, zoology, things like that. So yeah, so for me, that's kind of felt like a bit of a barrier that I don't have those sort of, masters in creative writing, literature.
No, that's not. Yeah, like I hear what you're saying, but you don't have to have those to write a story. I think a lot of people don't have that. I think that if anything, that's not a barrier that the horror writers and publishers are putting in front of you. That's something that's in your head.
Okay.
In the best way possible. Sorry, I'm trying to say, like, no one is going to look at it and be like, well, they don't have a creative writing background as a publisher. That isn't something that it's. Your words are what matter.
Yep.
Your writing is what matters. So I think for that specific thing that you're saying, I don't think that's a barrier. I think that's more of an internal barrier kind of thing, like where you're hesitant to put things out there in the world than anyone putting them for you.
Cool.
Just to let you know. So like if you have something you want to put out, just put it out. Go for it.
I just want to say quickly, I also luckily haven't encountered any pushback as a woman in horror writer, but I'm pretty brand new. I started my short story, first publication in the fall. But I have found that the indie horror community has been extremely welcoming and friendly. And blasting right through all of my imposter syndrome over having not a lot of experience. And I think it's been great in general. So.
Yeah, the indie horror community, considering most of us write about butchering people and eating their internal organs for supper. And
yeah, my mom keeps trying to be supportive, and I tell her, you're not going to like any of them, Mom. You're going to hate them all.
Yeah, considering we write really dark, the majority of us are actually pretty decent human beings that just want to see everyone succeed. We're all for pushing everyone forward and just cheering each other on. So I think it's the indie horror community that I've seen. I have seen some that are awful and I want to punch them all in the face. But I have, for the most part, a lot of them are really, really just wonderful people. So I'm glad that's been your experience as well.
So far, yes. And I hope it stays that way.
Yeah. I keep finger crossing for everything because I don't want to knock on wood because it's loud. Does anyone else want to talk about barriers for horror women, or should we jump into some questions?
Yeah, jump into the comments maybe, because I think David's got another one there.
Yeah, I know. I just got to find it. Oh, there's one. Okay. Ooh. What is something you've never seen used to start a female character's journey that you'd love to see? Oh, that I'd love to see.
I'm going to go straight in with my request that female characters not have to have some sort of emotional, my family got butchered reason for, going on a, vengeance run, or, that they could be intellectual, could have a as I mentioned, that kind of sort of ideology, that kind of that they can have an intellectual reason for doing something, that it need not be strictly emotional. For me, I've not actually encountered that just alone that as a kind of reason for why they might start a journey. For me, it's that, there's always got to be that add-on to that emotional side.
Yeah.
Not just because, they might believe something.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
one.
feel like you have to be able to write some emotions in your story, but it doesn't have to be the main driving factor. Like, they still have to be human beings.
Oh, yeah.
That, like,
otherwise they're like a robot. Yeah.
Well, like horrible trauma doesn't have to be like the perpetual
Yeah, it doesn't have-
motivator.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, so I totally agree. Like it'd be great to see sort of like a principled, I don't know, more like almost like a philosopher style female character who decides on pure reason and, out of a sense of that type of duty to go seek out something, because that role is so often reserved for dudes,
Yeah.
Yep. Sort of, the magician who becomes to use a sort of dark fantasy, that magician who becomes a master magician because he was interested in learning something. Initially, for women, it's not that. It's it's sort of because I'm repressed, I'm not allowed to learn something. So they drive forward for that aspect, not just simply because I mean, that's certainly a case in a lot of historical situations. But yeah.
So this one is a really good question. For us, how do we navigate relationships with close family who do not understand your writing?
You just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
A little bit, you kind of have to, and it's annoying and frustrating when it's the most exciting thing for you and you have to kind of limit how much you mention it. I've been really lucky. Like, my family are amazing. Even my mum, who's like, I'm not touching it, but yay for you, because she hates horror actually everything speculative fiction. But yeah, it's tricky that you want to talk about it, but I kind of use my writing tribe as my writing family, I guess.
Yeah. No, I understand that. And I would like to say that I don't know if this is necessarily just about, because I guess it could be, they don't like the fact that we write horror, or it could also be they're just not interested that we write books. And that's what I find, to be quite honest. And it's not that my family, all of my family is not overly interested. But like, I'm a publisher, I'm a writer. I have my own business, and very rarely do we have a lot of family that come up to me and they're like, tell me about work. Because that just, it's just for them, because I'm not making thousands of dollars and they don't see it as a real job. It isn't necessarily something that they even think to talk about. So for me, I don't see it as a specifically, it's taboo to write horror. And I know that some people do. But for me, that hasn't been my experience. It's just like, this is just something she does on the weekends when the kids are asleep. Like, they don't understand that.
They really underestimate how much work goes into it.
Exactly.
I have seen that on my end too. Yeah, it's like where they'll just be like, like I had given my dad an anthology. Hopefully my dad's not watching this because I'm gonna talk crap about him. But like I gave him an anthology that I was in, and he was like, "Oh, you wrote this," and I was like, "No, Dad, I'm in there." He's like, "Well, how many people wrote this?" And he's looking at the back, and I'm like, "It's not all of us didn't write one book together." Like, here's my story in this book. He's like, okay, cool.
You're like, be proud of me.
Please be proud of me, or I'll have to go murder people because it'll be my childhood trauma expressing itself. No, it's fine.
I've had a totally different reaction from my family. My family are totally fine with it. They read my stories, they buy my books. They, actually, even the ones are like, yeah, I didn't really like that one, but it was, really interesting. Mainly because of the topic. So I'm kind of lucky in that respect that my writing is not something that bothers my family. Given that my day job has involved sort of saying to Mum, "Hey Mum, I'm just going to deflesh this magpie head on the stove," and my mum's only comment was, "Please do it when I'm not here and throw the saucepan in the bin afterwards." So because I was interested in like the actual skull from my work. So I suppose, given that my work is fairly on the macabre side anyway, that I'm writing about it, sort of dark stuff, has not really been a problem.
That's excellent. Well, it's good that you haven't had that kind of experience. Has anyone had a negative experience because they are writing horror?
I have in my community. Those in my community I've noticed seem to deem me as being kind of evil because I write horror. They're all a lot of churchgoers, and I've just gotten a lot of really negative comments like, "Why would you write such evil things?" and about people being murdered. It's like, maybe you need to go to church, and it's like, what is wrong with you?
Well, that's
It's like,
extreme.
yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's like, I'm just drawn to horror. I like writing horror, but a lot of people just don't really understand. They kind of label you for writing about certain things.
Yeah, no, that's it, and it's true. That's unfortunately. Yeah, I guess like you get pigeonholed into being stereotyped when you write specific genres, which shouldn't really be. But unfortunately, when you're living in a town like that, like that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Like if there's like I don't even know what I would say if random people on the street would be like, "You write horror." I'd be like, "Yeah, I do. Look at my shirt; it says it."
I think, I get that more from my day job, because it's evolution and it's science and it's, So far, my writing seems to be the least of the problems from a community point of view.
We've got another question. Are there tropes that beginning authors, and we'll take, if there is one more question, we'll take it, but after this, I think there's one more question. That's the one we're going to take. So this is one more after this. Are there tropes that beginning authors should avoid until they've had more experience? Trope.
That's a really chunky question, and there are some really great resources online that can guide you through a really comprehensive list, I feel like, of that. I mean, there are rules that can be broken, but there's a lot of things I feel like novice writers, even myself, that I did when I first started, that some editors and publishers will really be turned off by, but it can be a little bit subjective. I mean, there are a lot of little weird things.
It's definitely subjective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to say there were a few things like I tried with dark fiction, that kind of getting into the sort of real headspace of a monstrous character. So from the point of view of I've got a story coming out soon on sort of the Wendigo style, legends and ingrained culture. And there's an attachment to it of Wendigo psychosis, which is sort of part of a recognized form within the Algonquin community, because that belief in the Wendigo is so strong that it attaches itself to a kind of sort of recognizable psychosis. So in that case, that's cannibals, basically, people eating other people. And sort of I wanted to look at, sort of why someone might do that. So, my story is from point of view of someone who is, sort of becoming, if you like, a Wendigo, or thinks he is. And for me, I don't know whether I pulled it off or not. But yeah, that kind of was not something that I'd try and attempt, sort of a year, 2 years ago, just because the skill that I needed as a writer to do it. Like really knowing my own voice and sort of having a bit more control over the writing style was not something that I think I could do, sort of even a year ago. That kind of, getting into something that is both disturbing, complex, and trying to write that. And whether it works or not, I don't know. It's a in progress.
Yeah. When I had that's not really a trope, but because I think of myself as more of a beginning author, but some of the stuff is being careful not to try too big. Like I have some half-finished, complicated time travel thing that'll probably never be done because I don't even know how to do it. And then like 2 unfinished novels that were huge fantasy things. Like I think just it's not really like a trope, so it might not perfect for this question, but I would say don't be too complicated right out the gate because you'll just bury yourself. I did that for years.
Yeah, I think a lot of authors start in going, I have to write a novel, and they don't necessarily realize that there is a market for the smaller genre, like the smaller work. So it's unless you're amazing at it. My only suggestion would probably be don't follow into that trope or that trap of feeling like you have to be pigeonholed into thinking I have to write an epic novel. It has to be a series. It has to be this. Like you can start small, get your feet wet, figure out from there. And
that's been exactly what I did. Years of trying to write big novels, and then like the last year, I just sort of started writing short stories. I can't even tell what triggered it, and I've had a lot of no's, but I've had some yeses, and I've learned a lot. So it's, don't be that trope where you have to be a novel writer right away. Okay.
All right, let's take. Oh, sorry. Do you have something, Neen?
My biggest suggestion to newer authors who are worried about that: don't write anything you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know, research it, look it up, find out what it is. And as you read and learn about it, you will go, oh, that really resonates with me. So write what you're comfortable with. Don't try to write what you think you need to write.
Yeah.
That would be my best advice.
Oh, that's good advice. What kind of horror stories do you think there should be more of? Women kicking ass.
But in a realistic way.
Yeah. And killing a bunch of people, not just for an emotional reaction, but because we thought about it and we're like, I want to kill all of these people.
I want more
logically.
I want more female villains, female slasher villains. I watched Freaky yesterday for the first time, and I know it's a man inside the girl's body, but it was really kind of neat in a weird way watching this young teenage girl kill all these people because you don't see that a lot in horror movies. So personally, I want a few more maybe female slashers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I want more queer characters, but I don't want the queer romance people to die. None of that. Over here. There we go. Yes, because it's
a lesbian death.
Yes,
always happens.
We were talking about that a while ago.
Yeah, like we don't need to have a tragic queer ending, but we can have the queer people in the story. Thank you. Yes, please.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I want more queer horror.
Please.
Well, let's start writing it, ladies, and I will publish it. Because I agree. We need to put it out there. And we can even let them live.
Yes.
We can kill a couple of them, but we can live because everyone's got to die somewhere.
More diverse characters in general, not just sort of sexual orientation, but racial identity, cultural identities, disabilities. Sort of people who, and not just the physical disabilities or the mental disabilities, but sort of characters who represent aspects of our society.
Yeah. Yes, we need more diverse voices as well, I believe. But let's go. Last question. Sorry, I know we're going a little bit over time. What is the best resource you've come across as a writer? I want to say, as a writer and as a publisher, indie author community has been a fantastic resource from He's like, I'm reading. For me, the indie author community and Facebook groups and things like that, just like even writer groups where you can have your critique groups and things like that, has been a great resource of, and as well, just building up friendships, especially in lockdown, man. Okay, next. Who else wants to answer this one?
I
think
Okay, I think Neen wants to say something.
Who's plugging? You know.
You're plugging.
Ooh.
Definitely. Definitely agree with Neen's choice.
They're written from a mentor of mine who's recently passed away, and her name's Ike Flintheart,
Mm-hmm.
and they are absolutely fantastic resources. So yeah, I read them constantly to try and get my fight scenes right, to figure out, not to go down that rabbit hole of, self-doubt or imposter syndrome and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're just really good to have there because you can flick through them. And yeah, so they're my greatest resources at the moment.
Perfect.
I learned a lot from Writer's Digest, which I've been reading a lot of since I was a teenager. The Writer's Digest was a big go-to for me to help me learn about the world of writing.
I have two: the Writing Excuses podcast that I've been listening to forever, and the Horror Tree, which is where I first started finding submission calls.
Yeah, the Horror Tree is great for finding submissions, and they also have articles and everything like that. They're a wonderful resource, and if you don't know about them, look it up. Horror Tree.
They also publish some of my drabbles, so yes.
Yeah. No, they're a great resource.
I would say writing groups. That's my number one thing that helped me really, really get started, was having a captive audience asking me every week, Cassie, what have you written? And me being like, oh.
The accountability helps so much.
Yeah.
People just checking in on you.
Yes. And people
That's
judging you
wonderful.
and being like, I wrote my chapters, where's your chapter at? And then, and then you're sitting there in the hot seat being like, well, I played wow.
Before lockdown, I was in a writing group, and everyone showed up with stuff, and I was like, I have an idea. I was like, I'm going to have to start actually paying attention. It was my second time there. I didn't realize we were actually supposed to bring something, so I felt like a little bit of an idiot.
I suppose for me, I'm going to go with Australian Writers Centre has been great for doing courses. Like I mentioned that concern I had about not having qualifications. So not so much that I can have qualifications, but actually getting into learning how to write, plotting things out, planning things, how to write scenes, how to write characters, point of view, all those kind of things, which and also like Kat Rambo's courses on writing. There's a whole series that she does or hosts throughout the year with a lot of different great writers. Unfortunately for me, it's in US dollars, so that makes it super expensive.
Us Australians and Canadians. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really hurts. But there's a lot of free for me, self-paced courses are kind of the way I need to go, where I can do it in my own time, because I don't have a lot of obviously free time with a PhD balancing this. And that kind of learning how to write, but also, sort of genre writing, exploring how to write that as well. Sort of building those skills so that I can get to those ideas that I want to write. So kind of, sort of developing myself as a writer and knowing that I am going to be developing as a writer. This is not the finished product.
Well, no, those are some great resources. That's awesome from everybody. It's interesting to see where we all find our stuff, our inspiration, and just kind of what keeps us all going and keeps us on track. So, but thank you guys so much for coming today. It's been great to meet you all and to see
Thanks,
you
everyone.
in person.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us and writing those great questions and just having fun in the comments. That was a lot of fun to I didn't put a lot of them up because we would be here
They
all
were
day
fun.
because you guys are all going through there. So thanks so much for just being here and being a part of it. We really appreciate it. And thanks right now for Eerie River. I'm sorry, I'm going to do a quick plug. We're doing a Amazon giveaway if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you go onto our Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, all you have to do is tag a friend and like that post, and you are whatever they're called. You're entered. Entered is the word. You're entered into a draw for an Amazon gift card. So if you're watching, remember to subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot of author stuff coming up, but we're also, something exciting, we're getting some reviewers. So those people, those bloggers and YouTubers are going to be coming on, having a little chit chat and having some time for everyone to kind of ask some questions. So stay tuned, you authors too, because you get to ask some questions. And that's going to be coming up in late March. So excited and terrifying. But you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to turn on the fun little logo thing. So beware, Eerie River.